I often hear that Europe misses out on models offered for the US market, especially family haulers and larger SUVs, which can comfortably carry more than 5 people. These models are unavailable on the old continent due to emissions regulations, among other things, so Kia won't sell us, for example, a Telluride with a 3.8-litre V6. But if you want something with similar performance and usability, how about an electric Kia EV9? Measuring more than 5 meters in length and nearly 2 meters in width, the Kia EV9 is marginally larger than the Telluride. It also has a longer wheelbase, 310 centimeters. That's more than the Land Rover Defender, not much less than the Mercedes-Benz GLS. The EV9 is 20 centimeters shorter than the GLS and a dozen or so centimeters shorter than the Defender 130, taking into account the 25 centimeters protruding spare wheel on the Defender. In addition to similar exterior dimensions, the EV9 is just as spacious inside as the aforementioned SUVs. The Defender 130 even comes as an 8-seater, and we're talking about 8 seats where adults can sit comfortably. Interior configuration 2+3+3. The GLS comes either in 2+3+2 or 2+2+2 configuration, and so does the EV9. The EV9 comes in 2 trim levels, Earth, or whatever it's called in your market, and the GT-Line. The latter can be ordered in the 6-seat configuration with the Lounge or Relax pack. Names can vary across different markets. The Lounge pack features swivel second-row seats. You can rotate them 90 or 180 degrees. I don't know why 90, maybe if you want to catch fish from the car, but when you swivel them around 180 degrees, you have a lounge of sorts. This sounds like a good idea for a hotel shuttle, for example. This test car has the Relax pack, which features reclining seats with leg support, sort of. You can have a nap even in the driver's seat, maybe while you're charging. I found a fisheye lens photo in the Kia catalog, which makes the second row look like a first-class compartment. But in reality, there are certain limitations. Reclining seats are best used in the second row so that you can take full advantage of the leg support. It wouldn't hurt to push the front seats forward or have a short driver and front passenger. And forget about using the third row then. But even without the lounge pack, captain seats in the second row are comfortable. They offer a wide range of adjustment. From the second row you can control third zone climate control. There are door pockets, cup holders here between the seats. There are USB-C ports between the seats as well. There is a storage drawer with a little shelf down here, so your kids can put away all the stuff they have rattling about. This test car also comes equipped with a panoramic roof. Actually, it's a sunroof in the front and a panoramic roof in the rear. The front sunroof has a manual cover, while the rear panoramic roof has an electric shade, but it can only be operated with a switch by the rearview mirror, so the passengers in the rear have to ask the driver to open or close the shade. Now, in order to get into the third row, you can use a button on the seat. So this seat, it takes ages, will slide forward, and then when you press the button again, it'll go back to its original position. However, it takes quite a while. Now, if you have, for example, kids in child seats here in the second row, older kids who either don't need child seats or who can strap themselves in by themselves, can just go through here in the middle. I mean, to be honest, even adults can do it, so it may be quicker and more convenient. As long as passengers in the second row don't recline, there's decent legroom and headroom in the third row as well. 2 adults will fit easily. There are cup holders, USB ports, small cubbies, air vents. I don't think I'd want to travel across the continent back here, but I'd survive a 3-4 hour trip. To make communication between the front and the rear of the cabin easier and possibly less loud, EV9 features an intercom. At the moment it's turned up to full volume, hence you may hear an echo, but I hope the mic will pick up the general effect. Anna, can you please open the frunk?
How do I do that?
There is a button above your left knee, press it twice.
Ah, have it. Thanks.
And there you go. The earth or base trim is also available in rear-wheel drive, and then the frunk has 90 liters capacity. All-wheel drive, which is standard on the GT line, gets a 52-liter trunk, just what you need to fit a couple of charging cable bags. Speaking of charging, Kia EV9 takes up to 11 kilowatts AC and peaks at 210 kilowatts DC. The traction battery has almost 100 kilowatt hours capacity, so charging at home takes about 9 hours and rapid charging from 10 to 80% state of charge takes 24 minutes, assuming you'll find a powerful enough charger. So at German Autobahn speeds, you'll be recharging every 250-300 kilometers, but drive around Austria, where they have lower speed limits, and you'll stop for electrons every 350-400 kilometers. The boot. The 6-seater version has 333, 828 or 2,393 liters capacity, with all the seats up, with the third row seats down, and with the third and second row seats down respectively. The 7-seater has less space in liters with all the seats folded because there is no space between the 2 rear seats. But then you have a large flat cargo or sleeping area if you plan to drive the EV9, say, to Nordkapp and, for example, want to save time sleeping by the chargers. And probably that's why there is a button to open and close the tailgate from inside the boot. There is room under the floor for the cargo cover and a repair kit. There's also a 12-volt and a 230-volt outlet, and there are buttons for folding and unfolding the second and third row backrests. There are also anchor points for securing luggage. I'm not a fan of retractable door handles. These are particularly difficult to access in an emergency situation. So if a passenger wants to get in, they must wait for the driver to open the doors. Well, at least the doors cover the sills. They do, really. Behind the wheel of the EV9, it's clear that it's a new generation EV for Kia. Not only the graphics have changed, but also the way the infotainment system works. The least has changed on the gauge cluster, I think only the graphics, but contents of the central display are all new. First of all, gone is that AC media dual function panel. AC now has its own space on the screen, but it's obscured by the steering wheel. From behind the steering wheel, I can only see a plus button, which opens up climate control settings on the main screen. There are some basic shortcuts on the panel below the display, which is where I tend to rest my fingers trying to tap something on a screen. Lower are physical buttons for basic AC controls and a volume toggle. On the screen we get large icons for the most important sections. In addition, you can assign shortcuts to 2 customizable buttons. One is on the screen and one is under the display. The latter I assigned to the intercom, and the one on the steering wheel we'll talk about when we hit the road. The infotainment system gets online data like weather and stuff, and finally route planning with charging stops works as it should. It calculates the route dynamically and it takes you to the fastest chargers along the route. You can also set up driver profiles activated with a fingerprint. You can also assign virtual keys to phones, so you don't need a key like in a Tesla. However, I couldn't test either the fingerprint business or assigning a virtual key because both of them require 2 keys to be physically present in the car for the setup. And since this is a press car, the second key is with Kia, obviously. Kia, of course, promises over-the-air updates. You can also purchase additional features, or in case of this early production test car, download missing automatic parking feature. Next, we have USB ports and a 12-volt outlet. Below that is a huge cubby. There are US-sized cup holders on the center console, Next to them are buttons for the 360 camera, parking sensors, hill descent assist, and a fingerprint reader. There's also a wireless charger and tiny storage under the armrest, and that's because the rear passengers have a slide-out storage compartment underneath. The glove box, on the other hand, is pretty big, and so are the door pockets. The start button and the drive selector are on this joystick behind the wheel, and I like that when selecting reverse, the joystick vibrates slightly, so just in case you got the wrong direction, you know because it vibrated, so you've been warned. Now, you know the car maker isn't too keen on current regulations when in a press car glove box you find a laminated instruction on how to turn off the Intelligent Speed Assistant, ISA, and the driver attention warning, DAW, D-A-W. The only way to deal with ISA is to shut it down every time you start the car. However, until now, I only had problems with overactive driver attention systems in recent Toyota and Lexus products. It turns out also Kia has a problem with this. Perhaps not to a point where I would want to turn it off every time, but DAW likes to beep at me, sometimes even when I'm looking at the road. Also, a couple of times I saw a suggestion that I should take a break, and that's after a dozen minutes or so behind the wheel. That's why I assigned the configurable button on the steering wheel to quickly access the driver assist system settings. The only drawback is that you have to wait some 20 to 30 seconds until the driver profile boots after starting the vehicle, and you can enter the settings. Honestly, I'd pay more attention to the road driving away from my home if I wasn't staring at the monitor to turn off those annoying beepers. Once you leave your residential area, on the road the EV9 feels smaller than it really is. I'd say it feels like Sorento, tops. Although I wouldn't mind if there was an option to get four-wheel steering, but that would make the car even more expensive. GT-Line comes on 21-inch wheels as standard, and it's a bit crashy on bumpy roads. I'd rather have the base trim with 19-inch wheels, on rougher roads at least. Also, soundproofing is average. Again, price. Aside from the annoying and overzealous safety systems I mentioned earlier, other driver assist features work well. Perhaps the adaptive cruise control maintains a bit too much distance even in its lowest setting. Still, it's better than it used to be in Kias and Hyundais a few years ago. Visibility is great, and the 360 camera helps. Plus, the car will brake itself if you are too close to an obstacle. The EV9 has 384 horsepower and 700 Nm of torque in the GT-Line spec. Kia promises a 0 to 100 km/h time of 5.3 seconds. I checked and I got 5.9 seconds in both normal and sport modes. It was wet and windy, and the car is on winter tires, so maybe there's half a second in there somewhere. Energy consumption. The manufacturer promises 22.8 kWh per 100 km. On country roads, I managed to get down to about 24 kWh per 100 km, high 24. It was windy, about 5 degrees Celsius. In the summer, Kia's claimed average energy consumption below 23 kWh per 100 km is probably achievable. But it does get worse on expressways, and the energy consumption quickly reaches 30 kWh with the potential to raise even further. In the city, recuperation helps to reduce energy consumption and can be controlled with paddle shifters. You can either set it to auto or you can set it to one-pedal driving, but one-pedal driving needs to be reactivated every time you restart the car. Now, the EV9 is heavy. This version weighs more than 2.5 tons, and it can tow up to 2.5 tons. The new generation batteries may have higher energy density, but they still weigh a fair bit. And so does this big, by European standards, SUV. Some markets also get a version with smaller batteries and less range, perhaps a perfect soccer mom car, lighter and cheaper. But just like the EV9 masks its size, it also hides its weight. The EV9 can take corners at such speeds that I was getting sick from the G-force. It's like during a track day when you have a taxi ride with a pro racing driver. I should add that on the same road in ideal weather conditions, the Lexus RX was understeering at a much lower speed. Clever all-wheel drive certainly helps in such situations, but when not needed, the front motor is automatically disengaged. And since it's an all-wheel drive car, I performed my diagonal approach test. I stop halfway so the wheels on the diagonal have limited traction and then try to get moving again. I tried in different modes and Kia handled it all without a problem, even with ESP disabled. On loose surface the car is also tail happy, so I imagine it's great fun in the snow. But despite the modes for snow, mud and sand, I wouldn't venture in a 2.5-ton electric SUV into rougher terrain. Intelligent all-wheel drive in EVs quickly runs out of intelligence. By the way, the EV9 has a ground clearance of almost 18 centimeters. Prices of the Kia EV9 start at €72,490 for the rear-wheel drive based trim, add $4,000 for all-wheel drive, another $6,000 for the GT-Line. Unless you want the 6-seater version, which is a €1,000 option on the GT-Line, I'd stick with the base trim, all-wheel drive and maybe add drive-wise and comfort packs for a total of about $3,000. Smaller rims mean cheaper tires, so you'll save some money that way in the long run as well. The Kia EV9 is everything I stand against in electric cars. It's a big and heavy SUV that uses a lot of energy because it's big and heavy. That's not the kind of car we need in the cities. And with the above in mind, I'm ashamed to admit that I would love to drive an SUV like this on a daily basis. It's so American! But only with green credentials, so I get free parking. And how do you like the Kia EV9? Is it as pointless in Europe as the Telluride, or maybe we need big cars like this? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.